Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I am Ben Hansen, and this is the MinnMax Show podcast. As you can tell, because we have Jeff Marchiafava here.
Hey!
That's not all. We have Suriel Vasquez.
Hey!
And we have Big Dog Kyle Hilliard in the dog pound.
Ruff, ruff, ruff.
Hey,
Big dog's gotta eat.
This guy's wild. Welcome, everybody. We are talking about Ratchet Clank Rift Apart today. Which, by the way, if you want to see gameplay for Ratchet Clank Rift Apart and actually hear our impressions of the state of play, that's on MinnMax's YouTube channel, which you can go subscribe to. We'd appreciate that. We'll have our full reactions there, but we're recording this before the state of play. Then we're going to be talking about Returnal from Housemarque, PlayStation 5 exclusive, very exciting stuff. And we're going to be talking about NieR, the remake/remaster of NieR.
Say the full name. Don't short yourself here.
You're right.
Come on.
Okay, this is NieR Replicant version 1.22474487139. So please look forward to that. In the back half of the show, we have some fun community questions. Very good batch today. I mean, if this was a dinner I was cooking, people from all over the neighborhood would be clawing at the windows trying to get to this meal. It's some very fun stuff in there.
So you don't want to cook too well then.
That's right.
That's a scary neighborhood you live in, Hanson.
Yeah, it results in 48 deaths within the United States per year, is meals being too good and neighborhood children attacking the chef.
Man, Village is very different from what I thought it was going to be.
Hey, very exciting week for games because we have our one and true beloved Pokémon Snap is returning on Friday. And I am very, very excited about new Pokémon Snap. I cannot wait to play it. We're going to be streaming gameplay on our Twitch channel. You can follow us at twitch.tv/MinnMaxShow. We're going to be streaming for several hours from the beginning. So if you want a good look at that, you can check that out on Twitch. Reviews, much stronger than I expected. I don't know if you all checked those out yet. I was...
Stronger, huh? I mean, it seemed like, because it was like 8-ish, like, which is like super solid. Like, I'm excited to play it, but it's about where I thought it might land.
There's some 8s and 9s. Like, as much as I
exceeded your expectations.
It did, yeah. As much as I love that game, based on the trailers, like the new one looks a little bit sterile, looks a little bit dry. You know, the comparison I made before is I feel like I was worried it was going to feel like when you bring an arcade game to a console and play it, and it's like that's fine there, but it just kind of feels blah. But it seems like it's going above and beyond that. Like, I think the Metacritic's 80 right now, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I cannot wait to see all the wonderful photos from the community. And Kyle, we had a show many moons ago called Photo Mode Snap, which some would argue was an homage to Pokemon Snap, where we judged community screenshots from a bunch of different games. And we were very...
May have been nearly identical to the gameplay in the first few episodes.
Yeah, but we are bringing it back. Photo Mode Snap is going to return, so we're going to be judging and reviewing and discussing screenshots from the community for new Pokemon Snap. So this Monday, if you're a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, of course. Jeff, there are 2 N's in MinnMax. I don't know how many times I have to tell you. But if you're a supporter...
it wrong this whole time.
If you're a supporter at any tier, you can submit a screenshot and we'll include it in the show. And so I am very much looking forward to getting Photo Mode Snap rolling again and just celebrating new Pokemon Snap because it's a hell of a thing.
Hanson, I think we can reveal it here. Professor Mirror will be there in person.
Are you serious? The Professor Mirror?
The Professor Mirror.
Big M?
The Big M himself.
That's very exciting. So please look forward to that. Okay, Ratchet Clank Rift Apart, upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive. Where's everybody's hype levels at? Kyle, where are you at for the new Ratchet Clank?
Very high. I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, like a high 8, a 9. Very excited for it, for sure.
I think this is going to be a big deal. I think people are hungry for PlayStation 5 exclusives. I think, on that note, I feel like Returnal is going to do really well, but it feels like Ratchet & Clank might be the first big, juicy, fully featured PS5 game for people that maybe aren't into roguelites. I think it's going to fly off the shelves if you happen to pick up a PlayStation 5 off the shelf. But the new trailer that they revealed this week finally revealed the mysterious new Lombax's name. And Kyle, what is that name?
It's a rivet.
The best. I think
it's good.
I mentioned it on a podcast earlier that was my guess. I think it was like, I could get a load of this at some point, but I was just taking that from kind of funny. Like I think they were judging based on the community that had guessed it early on, but it's the perfect name for a female Ratchet. It's just amazing. Ratchet Clank Rift Apart. Serial, where are you at for this thing?
I think that'll probably be a game that I'll like more than I'm anticipating it, because like I'm not following it much. I watched the trailer and it didn't really do much for me. But the last Ratchet and Clank game that I played, I think it was the PS3 one, Crack in Time.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that game. Like I really liked it. I just don't follow the series much, so that hype isn't there for me. But I totally expect that when that game comes out, I'll look back on it pretty fondly. I'm like, oh yeah, that game was actually pretty cool, because I'm not like a big Ratchet and Clank guy. But what I've seen of this game is like, okay, this is gonna be a game that uses the hardware of the PS5, and so like I want it to do that kind of like tech demo-y. Like I want this to be almost like the sequel to Astrobot more so than I want it to be a Ratchet and Clank game.
Right, you want this to be the game that you invite your friends over to say, check out the PlayStation 5, look how cool I am because I found one.
Yeah, ignore the fact that it looks really, the console looks kind of ugly, but look at the screen. That's what matters.
Just have a blanket over your PlayStation 5 in the corner of the room.
Yeah, I'm trying to red ring it.
Keeps overheating.
Yeah, hopefully it'll, be that juggernaut that we're hoping for. Obviously, like jumping between different dimensions is going to be the big thing with the lasso, and you can like pull the dimensions towards you for the little rips and all that stuff. And then they're big on also implementing the adaptive trigger stuff. So it's like, okay, you have a shotgun, you can shoot the blast, but then if you pull it in all the way, it'll have like a bigger blast, that type of thing. So it seems like they're trying to make this the big set piece PS5 debut outside of Returnal. Returnal has some of that magic going for it as well.
Do you think this game will have that guide functionality that Demon's Souls had, where it's like, here's some tips and tricks for getting through this level, or like, here's how to find that stuff? Because I don't think I've seen it in a ton of stuff, but then I have like, since Demon's Souls, I haven't really kept up with like, okay, does this game feature the guide, like have like the guides feature? Because it feels like no one's talking about that at all.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't even know if I looked for it in Returnal. Like the only time I've really used that was for Sackboy, but it was pretty helpful for finding a couple collectibles.
Well, I remember when they revealed that sort of feature and the big thing of it being like, it's going to take you about an hour to finish this level or something like that. Mm-hmm. I was like over the moon for that. And admittedly, like I haven't even looked for it in any game I've played, whether that's a product of like just not ever being in a situation where I need to know how much more time it would take to beat the level or what. But I imagine if any game is going to continually take advantage of those features, it's going to be a first party Sony game. Like it's almost probably they encourage the developers to do that, I would imagine.
Yeah. Jeffem, what's your history with Ratchet and Clank?
I've never played a Ratchet and Clank game in my entire life.
But hang on. You did play Heroes on the Move, which I believe has Ratchet and Clank in it. Okay, so that technically...
I may have played one and then completely forgotten that.
That was the sound of Fava's brain buffering to like dig deep into that memory to find that the most obscure Ratchet and Clank game is the one that he's played.
But that doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. But that said, this is, for the reasons you guys have been talking about, kind of the one PS5 game that I guess I'm most anticipating and most has me thinking like, hey, I should get one of those consoles finally, because it is the one that's actually doing exclusive stuff that you can't do on last gen hardware at this point.
Yeah, and Returnal looks really nice, and I'm sure the solid state comes into play when like resetting the loop and all that stuff to some extent, but I think this is going to be the one that, it's really going to be the big moment for the PlayStation 5. Kyle, I don't know if this stood out to you too, but like that last trailer and what they've been showing lately, it just kind of is driving home that idea that it's weird how similar the story is to Crash 4. Like the idea of just like really leaning into dimensions, alternate versions of alternate characters, everything like that.
Well, I mean, now... Insomniac and Naughty Dog are kind of always like I don't want to like imply that one is chasing the other necessarily, but like there's always these weird similarities, like they between like Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank both being dual protagonist characters, like from Naughty Dog, he was on the Ted Price's podcast recently.
Yeah, Evan Wells.
And Evan Wells, and I think it was in there he talked about how they were totally separated, but then they just got together because they're friendly developers, and they were like independently both making games where like they had dual protagonists. And it's like, and the funny thing, the other wrinkle here is the newest Crash is not a Naughty Dog game, but it's still like it's a Naughty Dog character. It has those ties. So it is funny that there's still this like, they just can't seem to separate fully in a weird way. They
just always accidentally stumble into the same realm, even with the weird legacy stuff. Yeah. I'm just amazed. It's so wild to look at the history of Ratchet and Clank and just realize like it is amazing that Sony has been funding these games for the last 20 years. Like so many of these games are just now in that realm where it has a collection of fans that are constantly screaming, "Why aren't you bringing this back? What's wrong with you?" And like Sony, I understand we only got one last gen, but pretty consistently has been funding these Ratchet and Clank games, and Insomniac still has the will to make it. It's like a beautiful thing that has just continued from our childhoods on. It's so rare.
Yeah, it's especially weird considering if you look at Insomniac, like they have other franchises that they could lean into. You would think that they should be like full steam ahead on Spider-Man 2, right? But instead, like they're like it would be like if Naughty Dog made a Jak and Daxter game at this point, right? Like you would think that like just have them do these kind of more mature, grown up like action games that don't feature mascots. But these are their two franchises. Instead of it being The Last of Us and Uncharted, it almost feels like it's going to be Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank, which is strange.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is back in 2008 when Insomniac started a separate studio in North Carolina. And I think they've been doing a bulk of the Ratchet and Clank development out there. So it's like, Naughty Dog tried to split into two teams, but still all under the same roof. And it didn't really work that well. And it seems like Insomniac fully pulled it off by having a fully separate studio. And that has allowed them to keep these Ratchet and Clank games in full development. We learned this week that the music for the new game is by Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo, of course, but also the composer for Thor Ragnarok, the original Crash Bandicoot games, Kyle. There's your full connection. Jak and Daxter.
Rugrats, I think, as well, right?
Yep, there we go. And
a million things.
Sincerely, his greatest soundtrack, Boom Blocks on Wii, the Steven Spielberg game. Listen to that soundtrack, everybody. It is freaking wild and freaking amazing. But it made me even more excited about this game just to have that musical talent behind it. Hey, Jeffem.
Hey.
Since you're the expert of offbeat Ratchet and Clank games.
Of course.
There are 3 Ratchet and Clank spin-off games, not counting Heroes on the Move. Can you name one of them?
Hanson?
Yeah.
If you hadn't just repeated Heroes on the Move, I couldn't have repeated it again for you right now.
All right, Kyle, can you name one of them?
Secret Agent Clank.
Correct. Suriel.
Kenna Bridge of Spirits.
Correct. We have Kenna Bridge of Spirits. All right. And that's actually all of them. Congratulations. I don't know how the math works. Also have a co-op one, Kyle, if you can recall this one. Very cleverly named. I think it was maybe the first North Carolina.
Was it All for One?
All for One. Great job. And then a game that outside
I've been watching a lot of My Hero lately, so that's, Suriel gets it.
I get it.
Outside North America, this game was called Q-Force. Does anybody remember the name of the tower defense style game in the Ratchet and Clank universe?
What platform?
PS3. It goes back to their cheeky naming convention in a bit.
Is it like Age of Booty or Booty something?
No, that's a Capcom
Quest
game.
for Booty?
Oh, nope, that's another game. That's another PS3 game.
But that was like a sort of that when they were kind of doing those short. It's almost like a Lost Legacy style thing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
No, this
not
is
a spin-off, really. Yeah.
This is Full Frontal Assault. Was the name of that weird game, but yeah, it is crazy to look through the history of Ratchet and Clank. There have been so many games. Up Your Arsenal still seems to be the most well-reviewed one, the highest Metacritic at least, but it's bonkers to go back and compile this entire history. And I'm trying to figure out, since I jumped on with the 2016 kind of reboot / adaptation of the movie, it's confusing what you call it exactly. I'm wondering, jumping into Rift Apart, if I'm going to be lost on a couple beats story-wise, because technically it picks up from Into the Nexus, which was back in 2013. And so I'm sure they're going to want this to be like a clean starting point for folks, but there's definitely going to be a lot of characters that I just have no reference for.
Well, I mean, I think it's just going to be, you're going into like literally another dimension. So I think it's going to be a nice, clean slate. I mean, have they said as much? Maybe we'll know by now, based on the timeline of when we're recording this podcast and stuff. But I mean, it seems like Rivet is like going to be the main playable character. Like, I don't know if they've confirmed that or if it's going to be more split, but it seems like, this is a Raiden Metal Gear Solid 2 situation almost.
I bet it's going to be Ratchet trying to get to Rivet and Clank. but it's going to be jumping back between those two. But she's definitely going to be a big part of it and definitely playable.
Yeah.
And then, Dr. Nefarious is going to be the big bad guy, all that fun stuff. That is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Definitely looking forward to it. Kyle, we need to talk about Returnal. And I don't think you like good vibes in general. So would you mind clapping out?
Well, real quick. Based on what you know about me, Hanson, and the things that I like in video games, do you think I'd like Returnal? Should I get ready for that, personally?
I like the game, but I don't think you'd like it.
Okay. I'll probably still pick it up. Okay, bye.
There we go. I'm here.
New voice. This is Steve Bowling from Good Vibes Gaming. Hello, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk about Returnal. I've been playing a ton of this game lately.
And you're pent up and want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the worst part of getting games early is you don't really have anybody to discuss them with. So I'm really excited to be joining you guys today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We should mention, I don't know about you, our codes were provided by PlayStation ahead of time, so thanks to Sony for sending those over. So just a full heads up on that. Hey, Steve Bowling, I've been following Good Vibes Gaming. I'm always interested in seeing how other Patreons message things, how they build up. You're kicking our butts on YouTube, so congratulations. Do you want to just run through the history of Good Vibes Gaming and why it was formed?
Yeah, thanks. So, Good Vibes Gaming is myself, Derek Bittner, and Ash Paulson. We're all former members of Game Explain. And, we'd been there for a few years. Derek had been there nearly a decade. And we kind of decided that we wanted to explore our own creative avenues and do new and different kind of things. And so the three of us got together and decided to form Good Vibes Gaming. We really focus on positivity, mental health, well-being, and inclusivity in the gaming space. We think that there's enough folks covering the other stuff that we really wanted to provide kind of a safe space for people that feel marginalized within the gaming industry and give folks a place where they don't have to worry about necessarily all the other negative aspects that can unfortunately accompany our favorite hobby.
That is something that we are very familiar with. I mean, I feel like MinnMax was founded on a very basic, similar idea of just like, let's try to get rid of this snark and negativity in the gaming space. And it's amazing how just that slight framing on the forming of a Patreon can really inform and kind of reflect in the community that you built up. I'd imagine the Good Vibes Gaming community is overwhelmingly positive, for that basic reason.
Yeah, we're thrilled with the community that we've managed to build around this idea. And frankly, you guys were one of the Patreons that we looked at when we were discussing starting up, because we love your messaging about getting better. I really loved hearing that in your initial Patreon trailer. And I was like, these guys are very good at this. And I really want to emulate that success. So, I mean, you mentioned that we're kicking your butt on YouTube. You guys are kicking our butt on Patreon, man. Like a 3-to-1 ratio.
So look, I would do anything for
you guys
YouTube
are doing
followers.
Very well. I'm very happy for you guys. We hope to someday reach that level of success to where we can all, the three of us can do Good Vibes Gaming full time, because only one of us is full time right now.
Gotcha. We know that feeling very well. I also, you have that daily news show, which when I saw you start that up, I'm like, that is such a tall order. Oh my gosh. But it's going okay for you?
It's going well. Yeah. Today's News Tonight is actually gearing up for season 2 soon. So we have a lot of changes coming. It's going to be live on every podcast service, which it isn't currently. We're also taking down the paywall for it, so it will be live just for the whole YouTube community to view. But we're still providing like a safe space for our patrons in our patron exclusive Discord, which you can get into for $1 a month, and they'll be able to have their chat read on screen during the show. Just to make sure, because some folks in our community don't feel necessarily comfortable jumping into just live YouTube chat with everybody.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that they still had that safe space to where they can express their thoughts and opinions without feeling like they have to battle the commentary on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Returnal, Steve, I'm very curious how much you've played of this thing.
I hate to say it, but Returnal has crushed my confidence in my abilities as a video game player. I have played dozens of hours, but I have not gotten very far.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm 5.5 hours in, and I also have not gotten very far. Just to be clear, this game is challenging in a good way, I think.
Yes.
But what's your experience overall with the game so far?
The core gameplay loop is incredible. I love playing as Selene and fighting these kind of weird eldritch horror-ish kind of monsters on this planet. It is satisfying in a way I didn't think a roguelike could be satisfying. I am not a traditional fan of the genre, but Returnal looked really compelling. I liked the idea that, we had a female protagonist, and an older one at that.
Yeah.
It seemed very interesting to me. So when Sony offered me the opportunity to play this early, thank you, Sony, I jumped at it, and I am really happy I did, because the moment-to-moment gameplay is incredible.
Yes, I am completely with you. I'm enjoying the game so far. Despite it kicking my butt, it always feels fair. It always feels like it's my fault. And a huge part of that is like the controls are just so unbelievably tight. Like, we streamed a little bit the other day on our Twitch channel, and people in the chat were like, why is Selene running at like 60 miles an hour? It's like, yeah, don't worry about that. It's all just for the sake of like that arcade precision that Housemarque is known for. And it results in like such an incredibly tight experience. I mean, even the doors opening are like half a frame before they fully pop. Like everything is as tight and as snappy as you could be.
I mean, she's Doom Gal, right? Like that's basically who she's like. I
guess so.
In terms of move speed.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. So just for setting the stage here, this is Returnal, PlayStation 5 exclusive from Housemarque, who previously made Super Stardust HD, if you remember that, Dead Nation, Outland, Matterfall, Nex Machina. They are a studio that loves the arcade roots and love bullet hell experiences. They love a big glowing ball slowly coming at you. That is the Housemarque cup of tea. And there's a lot of that in this game, which again, it feels so unique to have like these arcade sensibilities married with like this beautiful sci-fi, experience here on the PlayStation 5. It just feels like the perfect marriage of roguelites and arcade sensibilities. Like, yes, this is something new. This is something fresh.
Yeah, so like I think I'm a big fan of Housemarque's, but like it feels weird to say like I'm a low-key like longtime fan, because every time I play one of their games, it's always in these like, not in the like, okay, I've bought the new Housemarque game and I'm gonna spend time with it. Like it was always like when I bought my PSP Go, which is the first one that I had, I was like, okay, it's like $5 or whatever, I'll play that, and I played it my entire Thanksgiving break that year, and like I just did everything. And then the same thing with like the one on Vita. It's like, well, it's one of the few Vita games out there right now, so I'll spend a ton of time with it while I'm watching TV. And Nex Machina was definitely the first one. It's like, oh yeah, those games are good. And I downloaded, I got a code back when I was at Game Informer, and I just played a bunch of it.
Yeah,
and never really finished every level, but like I got through a lot of, like I was perfecting, like trying to do as much possible, like getting S ranks and stuff in that game. And that game I love. So this is like the first, like, you know what? I'm actually really excited for Housemarque games, like, because I think they do a lot of really cool stuff. And I was kind of disappointed by when they said like, oh, we're, arcade is dead. We're kind of done making those types of games. And they made this battle royale game. I forget what the name of it is.
Storm Divers, which they ended up, I think, not canceling, but like shelving. They're like, it's on a hiatus or whatever. Because they said like, hey, we have a big new project with a mysterious new publisher. We need all hands on deck. So we'll put Storm Divers off to the side. But yeah, you mentioned it. Like, it's crazy that it's still up on Steam, and I can't imagine they'll go back to it, but technically it's there. Yeah.
So like seeing this, I think it seems like this is basically a Housemarque game, but with like the production values that would bring more people into it, of like, well, this game has really good graphics, so I have to pay attention to it, right? And it's like a big Sony exclusive at a good time when they're on those right now, like this year. So it seems like, okay, all eyes are on Housemarque right now. You have the floor. Like, let's see what you can do. And it's like, I was kind of like thinking like, I wonder if people who are really just into games with good graphics from big publishers, if they're going to kind of not jive with it, because it's like, it is this very arcadey thing, and how that the look of the game might clash with the gameplay. But it seems like everyone's like really excited about it.
I think it's going to be a lot of people's first experiences with a roguelike. Or roguelite, I guess we should say technically. Like, I don't know, Steve, what has been running through your mind playing it, but I'm playing this and I'm like, man, it seems like Hades really primed the pump for like a narrative-focused roguelite here.
I absolutely love how Housemarque managed to weave the roguelike elements into Returnal. The death being woven into the narrative. And if you streamed it, then, Celine encounters her own corpse very early on in the game. And that was like a mind-blowing moment for me. Just, oh, wow, they're really going there. Like, you're not just, it's not just like these vague audio recordings and you have to figure it out. You see your own dead body on the floor and you're, and they also let you encounter the dead bodies of other players, which I thought was really interesting. I made the mistake in my very first run of trying to avenge a fallen player, and I got smoked real quick because I was not ready for what was waiting on the other side of that fight. But I think that they did an amazing job kind of obfuscating those elements, because in your first few runs, I don't want to say the seams because that sounds inherently negative, but the fact that it is a roguelite doesn't really shine through until you've done a few runs and you realize, oh, these are the same rooms. And okay, these are what the different door types are. And, these, you encounter parasites and things, and it starts to feel more like a roguelite. But I would say I didn't really start noticing that until about maybe 5 runs in, until I died several times and started realizing, okay, this is that layout, and I know where the doors are in this room layout.
Even if, they change up like the enemies in each room and stuff like that. But yeah, I've definitely experienced that, where it's an interesting, I don't know, alternative compared to something like Hades, where with Hades, they have different rooms and different orders and stuff like that, and you don't really notice it or care too much because you're just focused on the enemies and fighting the enemies. Whereas in this game, where there's a little bit more 3D platforming, you tend to remember the rooms more. Like, okay, it's obviously randomized where these things are, but now I'm in the room where there's the power up if I jump over and then go to the right over here and then go down here to find this door here. So like the fact that you're focused on the platforming kind of bakes into your brain a little bit more, but it hasn't been obnoxiously repetitive or anything. I think it does a good job of shaking it up. And then there's also different biomes that you work your way through, where it starts out very foresty, and the entire game has a very Prometheus vibe to it, art direction wise, and then it'll shake it up and bring you to different environments later on, which is a cool way to shake it up there. But you have made it beyond the first biome, I presume?
The first, yeah.
Congratulations.
Don't talk to me about the second, because I had a very, going back to what you said earlier, you never feel like your deaths are unfair. Like they're not warranted. It's always, I didn't time this correctly, or I missed this. And I was in bed last night playing this with my wife sitting right next to me, and I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm holding my breath. I'm fighting the boss of the second biome, and I have him down to like 1 hit, but I'm also down to 1 hit. And he the bosses just go crazy with these bullet hell patterns the lower they get on health. And so I'm down to just a few shots and I'm going to win it. And I get nervous and I jump and I dodge right off a cliff. And I killed myself. And I put the controller down and I finally exhaled. I was like, oh no, I'm back in the ruins. I was like, just 1 shot and I would have made some substantial lasting progress. And I was like, I can't believe I choked that hard right at the end. But
what do you think?
But you want to go again almost immediately after that. So
yeah, and the legend is just like quick jump cuts, bringing it through some, seeing the ship crash again and again, or just her picking herself up out of the ruin of the ship. It's a really cool presentation style. What do you think about the PS5-ness of everything here?
It is. So Returnal is an excellent showcase of the PS5's tech. My friend, kind of funny, Blessing Adeoye Jr. tweeted out something that I was like, damn, I wish I'd tweeted this, because he tweeted out just a video of his controller and you could hear the rain falling on Celine's suit. And I was like, that is one of those wow moments for me when I played it. The use of the rumble in the PS5 controller, the haptics, sorry, whatever the brand name is these days. Right. The adaptive triggers work insanely well for the alt fire mechanic. And
do you like it that much? I'm a little bit torn on it. So the way it works is you do your normal fire with the gun, and then I think all guns have like an alt fire that cools down over time. And to get that prepared, you hold the trigger down all the way instead of halfway. And that sounds like a pain in the ass, but with the PlayStation 5's adaptive triggers, like, it really has a lot of resistance for that second half. So you can turn it off in the options if you want, but it is definitely something that I have to get used to, of just, okay, to shoot my normal gun, hold the trigger, but not with all of my strength. Just, you got to ease up a little bit.
I left it on, and I liked it because especially in a bullet hell game, it is easy for me to lose my cool and not execute properly. And it kind of served as a reminder to me, like, hey, stay calm, you'll be fine. Just observe what's happening on the screen and use Celine's dash as needed to get through waves of bullets and just approach the enemies calmly, and you'll probably survive a lot longer. But in the heat of battle, I do still find myself occasionally like accidentally going full throttle on the trigger, and then I'm like, nothing's coming out. I already used my alt fire. Calm down. It doesn't save me from dashing off a cliff, but I think that it's a cool mechanic. I really like what they've done with the PS5's, unique capabilities. Level loading is quick.
Yeah.
I don't think you could pull off a roguelite with this level of detail to the environments on a system that doesn't have a high-speed SSD like the PS5 or the Series X.
Yeah, I'd love to see if they tried to get this game on the PS4, what it would look like. And it's not night and day different experience, but yeah, it definitely feels like, okay, a good first step for like a good first-party game here. And it's just fun to see first parties funding a roguelite. Like, as far as I can tell, it's the first from any of the three, unless I'm forgetting something here. But in terms of like a big effort.
Yeah, that's one of those genres. I feel the same way. I felt the same way about battle royales, where it's like, you play a couple and it's like, these are cool ideas, but I want to see the polished kind of AAA version of it. As much as that kind of sucks, because I also like supporting indies and everything, you want to see the version where a company can just put millions and millions of dollars into kind of taking that and doing their own spin on it. And this definitely looks like that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure some people are going to look at the $70 price tag of this one and say, I don't know. And so it definitely feels like a lot. But I mean, if you're on board for this experience that you can keep playing for a very long time and they have daily quests and all that stuff, as long as you know what you're getting into and the fact that this is a roguelite, don't expect a narrative experience in the traditional sense, the third-person shooter. I think it's going to find a home with a lot of fans. And I'm happy for Housemarque. It just feels like they've really done it. It feels like this is them passing the test, and I would not be surprised to see Sony buying them within 6 months here.
Yeah, it definitely rounds out their portfolio of developers in a way that they have like all these like high prestige, very, very third person action oriented games, but nothing like Returnal from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially like Serial mentioned, when they put out that post, it sounded like really dire straits for Housemarque to be like, yeah, we've been making this style of game for so long and they just don't sell. So we're going to have to change what we're doing. And when they followed that up with a battle royale, when so many battle royales were also coming out at that time, it's like, oh man, what are they doing? And are they going to survive it? It's cool that they were able to do something a little closer to what they're known for and what they're really good at. And hopefully, that brings them success at least.
Yeah. Let's see. People in the chat yesterday were asking a lot about different builds, different runs, how wildly different it is. It is not Hades. Just to be clear, this game is no Hades, but I like it. But Steve, I'm curious, like, what you've learned from your hours playing the game about just the variability of the different builds. Do you feel like it's, a completely different experience run to run?
I wouldn't say it feels like a completely different experience. I would liken each run of Returnal to almost like playing a Metroid game, but you get different power-ups every time. So the core capabilities are always the same. You always have your dash, you always have, your breakneck speed, and you always have at least a pistol. But you basically choose like different weapons, and the augments I wouldn't say are as wild in Returnal as they are in Hades, as you alluded to. You get parasites, and which is a gross way of doing it, but cool, and it fits the world of Returnal, and they kind of latch on to Celine's body at different points, and they provide different kind of power-ups, but they also have kind of a adverse effect as well, and that can vary, but they're always kind of in the same wheelhouse-ish, like, this one will give you a malfunction, and that malfunction can be wiped out by maybe killing 3 enemies with a melee attack, or opening something, or using a consumable. So it feels like you're still playing the same core game, but you get some mild modifiers attached to each run.
Yeah, and I like the with the malfunctions, it always has like an objective in the upper left for how you can clear that malfunction from your system. Like it's very good at kind of that guided roguelite experience. But like, okay, this is where you're trying to go. The map is very clean, easy to read. It's very much just Metroid Prime's map, but it's a beautiful map. Why not go for it? And it'll always show you like, okay, your objective is way over here. If you can just make it here without dying, which spoiler, you can't, then you can make a little progress in the main story here. But
yeah, so what does the progression look like? You mentioned that it's not a rogue like it's a roguelite or, you know, whatever we want to call those. But
yeah.
what do subsequent runs like? How do they make those easier?
Yeah, so you get to keep big equipment from run to run. You get to keep ether, which unlocks other stuff as well, other little perks. But Steve, yeah, you can probably speak better to this.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there's ether, and that's a kind of a currency that you keep holding on to. Right next to the Helios where it crashes, there's actually a obelisk kind of structure where you can turn in ether to get artifacts, and artifacts are kind of just straight buffs that you can get. So you can unlock an artifact for a set number of ether each turn, and it steadily increases. So you know, it starts out at 2, then 3, then 5, and it keeps going up. So you have to keep collecting ether. Fortunately, the daily challenge in the ship grants you 5 ether every time you do it. So you can I don't want to say farm ether because there's a pretty, you know, there's a day-long timer on it. But if you, for whatever reason, decide you need to farm ether, then you can play the game, log out, come back the next day, get some more until you have however many you need. The other thing is that big equipment, like you mentioned, there's a sword that you can get, which enables Celine to have a melee attack. There's an item I haven't found yet in the second biome, which I assume is very useful. If I had to guess, it's like a grappling hook or gun, because there's a lot of grapple points everywhere on all the biomes, and I still haven't got that item yet because the game is insanely hard. And there's as far as other things you can collect, I believe there's there are some items that are very useful. You can get artifacts that bring Celine back to life one time and then they break. You can also activate machines throughout the world at the cost of a significant amount of ether that will also return her to life. So you can get kind of extra lives so that you don't go all the way back when you die. But as far as just progression, it's equipment mainly.
Yeah. Serial, are you getting this thing?
Probably. Like I still have NieR to work through, and so like there are a bunch of other like major releases this month or this coming month. But yeah, it's definitely on my list of games I should probably check out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks of it. It definitely feels like one of those games that we'll look back when we're at the end of the generation and look back on Returnal and be like, what a cool thing. I'm so glad that game exists. It's going to be, I think, a favorite for a lot of folks out there. So Returnal on PlayStation 5. Steve, if you could point people into one direction, content-wise, what would you point them towards over there?
Absolutely. Please feel free to join us over on our YouTube channel, Good Vibes Gaming. We don't have a fancy custom URL yet, so if you go to good-vibes-gaming.com, that points to our crazy YouTube username, which is a bunch of letters and numbers that don't make sense. So good-vibes-gaming.com will get you straight to our channel. All our other contact info is up there for you to check out. If you just drop us a sub, we would be more than happy to try our best to entertain you.
That's perfect. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It was kind of a last-second thing, but I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to talk games with you guys anytime you want.
Beautiful. Also, do you have thoughts on Kyle Hilliard? I know you're a positive guy, but you can be negative if you want.
I do not have thoughts.
Dang it. I was really hoping I could.
He already has a daughter.
Yeah, he has a daughter. Just say he has a daughter.
He has a daughter? All right.
Great. All right. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to clap out, buddy?
All right, here you go.
Kyle Hilliard, welcome back.
I'm back.
You returnaled.
Yo.
I avoided all the Returnal secrets. But I'm going to go back and listen to that segment. So hopefully you didn't talk crap about me.
Please do. Hey, NieR Replicant, version 1.22474487139. You've all been playing this?
Yeah,
This
I've been
is-
playing
yeah.
quite a bit. Yeah.
This is amazing. Yeah, Serial, I'm trying to figure out who's NieR fan number one. Serial, you seem the most eager for these codes.
Yeah, it was actually weird because I by the time the code came in, I realized I'd already bought it. so I wasn't able to actually use the code. But yeah, I feel like I have a weird history with that game. When I played it, like as I was playing it, I was like, I don't think this game is very good. Like a lot of the quest is, or I'm talking about Automata.
Oh, okay.
The 2017 game. Like I don't think this game is good. Like everyone like I remember the first thing I heard about NieR Automata was Joe's review in Game Informer, and he was like one of the lower scoring games review scores for that game, and I think he gave it like a 7.75 or something. Yep. And he was like, oh, I like that game, and I look back on it fondly, but like I don't think it was great. So I was like, okay, NieR, I could totally forget about it, and that turns out to not be the case. Everybody loves this game, flip their lids for it still, and that was like the same year that Breath of the Wild came out too. But I think I went into it like that game. The end of that game made me cry. Which not a lot of games do, but I remember thinking like it almost felt like Brothers to me, where it was like this is a like 10, 11 out of 10 moment in like an otherwise 7 out of 10 game for me. But like the more I think about like in the years since, like I look back on that game really fondly.
Yeah. And so now you wanted to check out where it all started back with a remaster technically of NieR from 2010, which is what NieR Replicant is.
Yeah, so this, I think like the version number is like the square root of 1.5. So so it's basically like here's like our remaster update, Game of the Year edition, whatever. Like the biggest thing I think for returning fans is that they have an ending E now. So like Yoko Taro games tend to have a thing where you have to play through the game multiple times and you'll unlock new things and new endings and stuff. So I guess they just ended ending D before, and now they have an ending E. Which has a bunch of prerequisites, like you have to collect every weapon in the game to see it. But yeah, like I think what I've said so far about Automata is sort of what holds true for Replicant so far.
Where you're waiting for the big story moments to make it feel super worthwhile?
Yeah, I feel like I'm giving it like the biggest benefit of a doubt right now, because like I've spent 10 hours with it and like 90% of that has been side quests. And like they're okay, but they're very MMO-like. A lot of them are actually like really tedious and kind of frustrating because, like one of the later ones is you have to collect all these different ingredients from killing animals, but it's like, like it's like an MMO where, there's like a 10% chance that item will drop when you kill something. So you're going into these fields and just killing things over and over again to get these items. So like so far it feels like this is not great.
You just don't get it, man. You don't understand it. But there's something so weird about seeing the environments too. Like you can really feel in the environments that like, okay, this is a game from 2010 that's been remastered, because a lot of them are just kind of like awkwardly large and barren, like a lot of the indoor stuff. It's like, okay. And then the crazy thing is like there's still like some of the rooms are 2D when you're in them. It's really a wild game.
Yeah, I think most of the interiors are have that like 2D perspective. But yeah, I feel like it is the biggest example. Like it could end up being the biggest example of it being more than the sum of its parts, because there are like even now I really like that song that plays in the overworld. I think it's called Song of the Ancients. But it's like there's like a random chance that there'll be vocals in it, and like I think that like those vocals are really good. And some of the side quests do actually have like really strong moments, but they're all fully voice acted, which I was not expecting. Like so far every line of dialogue has been fully voiced, which is cool.
Which is the new thing for the remake here, and it's localized by 8-4, Sarah Bazorski's alum.
It's so like the localization is amazing. But like a lot of it is you very much see it as a game that is doing a lot with a little, where like they're outside of the main story, there aren't really any cutscenes. You just go up to them and they kind of, I don't even know if their mouths move, but you'll hear the dialogue from them. And like the stories they have are like fine so far. There's one storyline that I really like, but a lot of them are just like, oh, I need you to go fetch me this thing, and then you go fetch them and it's like, okay, great. And like part of me is like doing this like 4-dimensional chess thing of like, are they commenting on the idea that this is work? Because that's kind of your role as the character, is that your job is to do jobs for people, and so you're doing a lot of jobs for people. So I wonder if they're just like, we're trying to make it tedious on purpose in a lot of ways, or is it just like not? Is it just this is what we had to do to for these things to be the vehicle for all the voice acting and stuff?
Yeah. So, okay, you're chewing on the meal, so trying to figure out what's going on. And Jeff, as someone who doesn't play a lot of RPGs, I'm so fascinated by your take on NieR Replicant.
Yeah, and I never played Automata, so I kind of went into it completely clean. I understand that Automata is supposed to be amazing for some reason. This prequel, I was assuming they were bringing back because it also had some kind of genius to it. But I'm still within that first 10-hour window that I hear is like the part that you have to get over to get good. But the gameplay so far has been better than I guess I expected, especially from kind of a JRPG, which is not to say that there haven't been good action JRPGs before. But it's been an interesting mix of like weird bullet hell shoot 'em up and like projectile attacks, and then the fairly standard melee. I'm still waiting for that to get more interesting, and it seems like the word book, like editing words and stuff, may make that more interesting. But I haven't gotten anything that's super exciting besides like this is a 2% attack bonus if I equip that word and whatnot. And so yeah, so far it has just been a lot of fetch quests, which I was okay with at first, and then like I got sent on one that was like, go to the area. It's this whole other area to talk to this person. And I went there, I got lost. There was a ladder I didn't see that I had to look up in a walkthrough. When I finally got there, I talked to the person I was supposed to, which he was hidden in a building. And then my book was like, oh, I guess this was a load of crap and there's nothing here. You should go back and talk to Paloma again. It's like, oh, Jesus. This main quest was a fetch quest, and I didn't even fetch anything while doing it.
It is weird how episodes of the podcast line up where it's like, this is really the bullet hell episode. Because like there's so many of kind of the neon blasts that are very, emblematic of NieR. And it's like, oh, it feels like Returnal in a way. Mm-hmm. It's all the same. You know what?
But the gameplay has been fun, and the environments are interesting. They are certainly, like you said, very spaced out, and there's not a ton in them besides some really good looking sheep in like the main field. But it's kind of interesting locations that you're going to visit. Yeah, even if any individual like area that you're going through within it, like the one you go to the Lost Shrine or whatever, and it's like that same room with boxes in it. It's like, oh, but this configuration's a little different. Go through that 10 times now. But yeah, but I've also liked the boss fights that I've done so far too. Those have been more interesting. So
yeah, like there are some although the texture count or poly count is like pretty low since it is a remaster, but they do some interesting things with the art direction. Like there's the seafront. I don't know if either of you have been there. Like I think that's a really good looking town in that it looks kind of like something like Greece or Israel, like something from the Mediterranean, where it's like all these like very square buildings, and it looks really like it looks gorgeous. It just doesn't look like an Uncharted game. But like there is kind of like just the idea of just it being in that world, I think, is maybe my favorite part of it, more so than like any of the gamey stuff about it, which is like going and doing these quests, right?
Yeah, people watching us live at the Backstage Pass tier on Patreon, the $10 tier, a lot of big fans of the NieR series. Like Killslayer here is saying that he thinks that he likes the cast of characters in Replicant more than Automata, but Automata's gameplay was stronger. But the stories or the characters themselves seem good.
I mean, I like Vice. He's kind of like the book. You find like this magical book that is supposed to help you cure your sister of an illness, and so like it's weird how much commentary they have on individual quests. So like anytime you do something, like it'll say like, oh, you completed this quest where you helped this guy. This guy was teaching you how to fish, and then after you're done, like after everything's said and done, like they'll have like some incidental dialogue between those two characters about like, well, what is that guy's deal? Like basically that kind of thing. And so like their banter, I think, has been pretty good so far. And you have these regular check-ins with your sister, and like right now it all feels like setup because I'm not super far into the main story. All I've done are side quests, which just feel like one-off self-contained things. Yeah. So, but I'm definitely, like I said at the beginning, bracing for like, okay, it is establishing expectations with the hope of breaking them later on. So I'm hoping that is what ends up happening, because right now it seems like, okay, pretty like mid-tier RPG that I'm hoping gets more interesting later.
Totally, yeah. Judging Automata by, well, I finished it once. There we go. It's like that's such a sliver of the NieR experience. So I'm sure NieR fans are screaming right now.
Hanson, when you say that, do subsequent playthroughs of it get any shorter or easier? Or okay, because when you say it's like, oh, now there's a 5th ending, it's like, great, I'm never gonna see that.
Yeah, they definitely get shorter because, like, for one, you're not doing as many side quests, like not nearly as many. So the main path is actually a lot shorter. And then, in like the 3rd and 4th one, or this was the case in Automata, where like the 3rd and 4th ones are like very, very abridged in that you start at a very different starting point in those last few playthroughs.
Kyle, you have been eerily silent this entire time.
No, I'm not trying to be coy or anything. I was just wanted to hear Serial and Jeff's thoughts. I think I'm a little hotter on it than you guys. It's actually, you said at the beginning, when you said you were trying to rank who the biggest NieR fan was. I'm married to her. Like, NieR is her favorite game of all time, like, period.
Automata or Replicant?
The original. Okay. The original on Xbox 360. And like, so it's been this, like, it's one that's like always been on my backlog, because it's like I got to see why she likes this so much, like what's so interesting about it. And I played through NieR Automata once, which I know is not like the full picture, and I was like, it seems fine. I'll get back to it. And Serial's pitch earlier actually makes me more eager to revisit it and pick up that second playthrough and so on and so forth. But yeah, I vaguely know a little bit of, like, the ending, so to speak. And it kind of like it does recontextualize a lot of what you're doing, which is something I'm really excited to learn more about. And like, I generally like just the setting of Replicant more than Automata. Like, there's just something, I don't know. Like, I like going to the area. I think it looks really cool. I like having the town. You have your little farm. Like, it just feels more homely, I guess you could say. I'm more interested in exploring it as someone who in theory grew up in that setting, rather than being like an android that's like being dropped down to go explore. And also, Automata had the poor timing of being the game I basically played right after Breath of the Wild. Right. And I just was like, I can't take these walls now. I think if I went back to it now, it would be fine. I like games with walls. They're great. But to play it immediately after Breath of the Wild, I was just like, this is not clicking for me right now. But really enjoying it, and I think it's one that I will do the multiple playthroughs and stuff like that. I'm really having a good time.
Yeah, I would say though that if you're interested, if you like want to see the lore stuff, you do definitely want a walkthrough, because I think a lot of the quests are actually not like super well designed, and they'll, for example, there's a series of fishing mini quests that are like go catch this fish.
I do not like the fishing, by the way. For one negative knock against the game, the fishing I find really frustrating.
Yeah, like it's like I don't think it's that bad. I think it's actually more involved in a lot of fishing mini games, and that you have to constantly pull away from whatever direction they're in. But like they'll tell you
long, and I'm getting nothing but cans, dude.
Yeah, so like you have to like, so for example, they want you to catch sardines, and the game doesn't really tell you at all unless you go to the fishing shop and look at the lug water, or the lug bait, something that starts with lug, that says, oh, these are for freshwater fish. And you have to realize that sardines are freshwater fish, so you have to buy that specific lure, and that'll increase your chances of getting sardines. And so like they do that for every fish, and they don't tell you where to fish them, because like that beach you're gonna have to go different places than that. But the game doesn't communicate that at all. So a lot of this stuff is like the game just doesn't tell you anything. So I have like no qualms about using a guide for like, okay, like this guy wants me to find X number of materials. Where do I go get them? So in that sense, it is very MMO-like, and like you're just kind of grinding this stuff out without like the kind of Zelda-ish, like, okay, this guy gave me a hint about where I need to go. Like, let me figure that out. Like that kind of chain of thinking is kind of completely busted here.
And in lieu of going through the colossal headache of typing things into Google, do you mind if I just text you, Serial? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll probably just end up giving you the guide that I've been using, because it's like, okay,
you're
like
the guide that I want to be using.
Want that
I don't want you to give me a guide.
But like, it's like there's a list of every side quest that is just like, here's how you do everything, basically.
Okay.
But the big thing is that if you see a sword in a shop, try to make that your goal, because like the thing that you want to get is all the weapons.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a really small thing in this game that I really like is the automatic running. Just like if you're in an open environment, you're running for a certain amount of time, it'll just automatically pop you into faster running. I think that's such a smart little system.
And you can roll. If you roll, that gets you sprinting sooner. Even.
Ooh, interesting.
And it has my favorite thing in video games from Ocarina of Time, Jak and Daxter. You can smash that roll button to go faster. So I am rolling my way across the field and I'm having a ball.
Yeah, but don't do that if a random guard has given you a package that you have to deliver without breaking it, because I did that the second I walked away from him. I was like, okay, rolling on to my destination, and it broke me.
And you get that familiar dialogue from Vice, right, where he's like, that does not sound good.
Yeah, I just like the image of the guard, like, okay, here's this very fragile thing, and you immediately just like, as soon as you leave, just trip over yourself and break it, and you're like, I told you it was fragile. Here's another one.
They're surprisingly understanding, those guards. They're like, yeah, I thought this might happen. I happen to have 14 of these, so go ahead, give it another shot. The wolves won't attack you this time, we hope.
I thought you were an idiot, so I made a backup just in case.
People might know this, but I'm still so fascinated by the legacy of NieR and Yoko Taro, the creator, and it's so weird. So this NieR game, the original, the remake that we're talking about here, remaster, is based on for a game known for all of its endings, Jeffem. Did you know this weird backstory that this NieR is a continuation of the 5th possible ending in Drakengard for the PS2?
It's
absurd.
It's the most
Drakengard
insane.
3, right?
Is it Drakengard 3? I think it's the first one.
Okay.
Well, it's that thing that I love, that it was like one. I think I pitched it even as a top 10 list at Game Informer one time, where it's like spin-offs that end up becoming more popular than the thing they spun off from. Like Dynasty Warriors is an example. Persona has now totally upended Shin Megami, and I feel like NieR, everyone knows NieR before they know Drakengard now. It's such a weird thing that happens.
Yeah, for sure. It's a wild story. It's just like, for a game that has so many endings, now they can just build up a new series based on, of course, the E ending from Automata. That's the basis for a new series, and these diehard fans are going to find it.
From what I understand, I don't think it's even like the ending E super commutative ending. It's like, I almost want to say it's like if there was a Silent Hill sequel based on like the alien ending from Silent Hill 2 or something.
Right.
It's like, we are basing our entire next several years of our lives off the fact that aliens at some point arrive in Silent Hill.
Well, I want the dog ending if we're going to pick one.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Honestly, would there be a better selling Silent Hill sequel option than if they went with the Shiba ending? And just that was the basis, was a Shiba is controlling it. Can you imagine all those weirdos on Twitter freaking out endlessly about that?
It would have done better than the twin stick Vita game. Remember that one?
Book of Memories? You gotta leave it alone.
I mean, if they did any Silent Hill game at this point, it would sell super well.
Yeah, you're right. It would still melt Twitter. But that is NieR Replicant, everybody, out on, God, is it just last gen?
It is PS4 and Xbox One and PC, although I've heard some not so good things about the PC.
Yeah, it seems like it's another okay port. I think it's sitting at very positive on Steam for with a game with such a passionate fan base. It's like, that seems a little bit lower than maybe it should be. But
yeah, I've only had one issue with the Xbox One where a woman needed mutton. I brought her mutton, and she just still needs mutton, but I can't give her any more mutton. Yeah, so she'll just always have that icon over her heads. But
I have that same glitch on PS4 or
PS5.
whatever.
I've run into a glitch where the cinematic bars are see-through, and it's really annoying.
It's such a weird thing.
I know, but they should just let me turn it off. It is such a distracting, why?
So just to explain this, so it's like the cutscenes are letterboxed, except the letterbox is slightly see-through. It looks like if you have a newer iPhone with the multiple lenses, the camera, how they have the top and bottom kind of slightly opaque. That's what they go for. But I guess it helps for reading subtitles, but it is so distracting all the time.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's NieR Replicant, everybody. Check it out if you're interested. Hey, Kyle. Because you got the clap fever. Do you want to make room for some new talent here?
Buddy.
You saying I have the clap? Is that what's going on?
That's right, sir.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to clap again. Goodbye.
Leo Vader.
Vader.
Welcome,
Hi.
Leo. How's it going, man?
So great. Thanks for having me.
What's your week been like?
I've been busy. Did another Fuser stream.
On the official Fuser Twitch account, right?
Yeah.
Leo, again, every episode is just Ass Kiss Rodeo, and I apologize ahead of time, but the idea of a company reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to stream like your DJ mixes on our official Twitch channel and also kind of dance along to them for hours. The idea of like dancing for thousands of people on Twitch, I think would give a heart attack to so many people, and you embrace it so hard. And it's really, it's a work of art out there, man.
Thank you. To be fair, I reached out to them. There was like a request form. And to also be fair, it is not thousands of people.
Yeah, but still, it feels like it.
But it's,
Over time.
I've certainly never
archive.
danced in front of that many people before. No.
There we go. Perfect. Let's see. Jeff, do you know how this whole thing operates?
It operates on Leo's dancing.
That's right, which you can find at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. Thanks for the support. That is what keeps us rolling here. Huge thanks to our biggest supporters like The Initiative, the tabletop game from Unexpected Games. The Initiative is a cooperative board game of clever strategy, code breaking, and visual storytelling. The story is told through a 42-page comic book. A page is read before each mission to set the stage and show the consequences of your actions. The Initiative has gameplay that is a unique blend of strategy and puzzle solving, and it's from legendary game designer Corey Koneska from Battlestar Galactica, the board game. One of your favorites, right, Jeffem?
True.
Mansions of Madness, Star Wars Rebellion, Star Wars Outer Rim. The Initiative, everybody. It is quite good. Jeffem, we haven't really talked about it yet. I don't think you've been on the podcast during this plug segment, but I've been playing it. I had 2 long weekend sessions with this game. We're like halfway through the story. Genuinely one of my favorite tabletop games in a very, very long time. It is very fun. Have you looked into it at all?
A little bit, yeah. I saw a couple other reviews, and it certainly looks intriguing.
Yeah, it's like if you like aspects of Betrayal, especially stuff like Betrayal Legacy, just having this ongoing story combined with something like an escape room, like it's a perfect blend. And there's just enough story to keep you going along and a little bit of role playing if you want to with the characters. But yeah, it's very fun. So The Initiative is the name of that tabletop game from Unexpected Games. Thanks for the support. Wait a minute. Serial?
Yeah.
What's that sound?
Oh, I think someone's mowing a lawn.
No, Serial, that's Rainmaker with Rainmaker.gg. This week, MinnMax is once again supported by our friends at Rainmaker.gg. Rainmaker is the all-in-one platform for streamers, developers, and publishers. If you're a streamer, Rainmaker gives you insight on your channel's performance and a full suite of streaming tools, including overlays, tipping services, chatbots, alerts, and more. Plus, you can get access to game keys from the world's best AAA and indie publishers. This week, check out game key campaigns like Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion from Snoozy Kazoo and Graffiti Games. For devs and publishers, Rainmaker provides powerful tools that help you analyze game performance and discover creators on the world's biggest streaming platforms. And when it's time to get your name out there, Rainmaker's campaigns feature makes it simple to put keys into the hands of thousands of content creators around the globe. So you can head to rainmaker.gg/MinnMax or hit the link in the episode's description to get started. That's rainmaker.gg/MinnMax. Thanks to Rainmaker. Also, thanks to our fine friends indeed, over at I Am 8-Bit. Every week, because they're so generous, they give away a wonderful gift to the MinnMax community. We take all of the questions and comments submitted at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, which you can leave a comment or question if you support us at any tier. We go through all those. We find our absolute #1 favorite question of the week, and then I Am 8-Bit will ship them out something very nice. And this week, of course, it is the Battletoads double vinyl soundtrack. So thank you to I Am 8-Bit. And they also want everybody to know that you can go to their wonderful online store and get the Disco Elysium Final Cut Collector's Edition. It is a PlayStation 5 version, comes with a fabric map, art book, statue, hand-painted Mind Totem vinyl sculpture, 190 plus page hardbound art book featuring oodles of previously unreleased art and stories. That fabric map is illustrated and it shows off the town. It is the physical edition of Disco Elysium with a reversible cover over there at the I Am 8-Bit wonderful online store, which if you go there, you can get anything for under $100 and get 10% off of that by using the promo code April Fools. April Fools, all one word, will get you 10% off anything in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. Should we get to these wonderful questions?
Yeah.
All right. Very good questions this week, everybody. If you submitted a question, I love you and I need you in my life because these are unbelievable.
Come on over.
So come on over. John Lee writes in, he says, salutations. Come on, what's better than that? He says, what's
you
the
guys-
Start.
What's the first thing in gaming that you can remember blowing your mind? I think for me, it was when my cousin showed me the top secret area in Super Mario World, free Yoshi power-ups and lives. Life-changing. Good one, John.
I was just thinking last night about the first time I played Oblivion on Xbox 360, creating a character in that. I felt like that was, obviously present in RPGs for a long time, but has not in a mainstream way that kid me was interested in. And finally making a character in Oblivion and like picking your sign you were born under. Just the sheer level of detail you could put into who you were going to be, that really was staggering.
And do you go for like a big cat person, or do you go for a little Leo Vader running around on the screen?
Back then it was a little Leo Vader running around, but now playing Elder Scrolls Online recently for no reason, Argonian.
Nice. Wait, it's interesting. You go from Fallout 76 to Elder Scrolls Online recently.
I think about what games I might want to play that I already own and want to pay for, and then I think about which of them have cooking in them, and I play those. That's where I've been at lately.
Jeff, do you know what he's talking about with the Mario World free Yoshi stuff?
Yeah, I do. That one didn't blow my mind though.
Oh.
Never had
I think mine. I remember Donkey Kong Country came out and had amazing graphics because they did like the rotoscoping, like fake 3D thing. And I remember that one specifically because my cousins came over and and one of them had to borrow the glasses of his brother to like do like the Google eyes, like look at how amazing these graphics are. The first time he saw Donkey Kong.
Wait, because
Was that a bit? Was he like, hold on, I need to borrow your glasses so I can...
No, for some reason, I don't know if they had similar prescriptions or something, but his brother was like, oh my God, this is amazing. He's like, give me your glasses. So
the family
It's
can
like
only afford.
he literally had to borrow his brother's glasses so that he could see how good the graphics were.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that visual is rooted in reality.
That is.
And now the weird irony of the whole situation is if you see Donkey Kong Country running on an HD TV, you actually take your glasses off and smudge them and be like, I need to clean them. What is happening?
So you don't have to look at it. Yeah. But the other one that stuck out for me was the first time I played Grand Theft Auto 3, even though that was much later in time. But that was I think I've mentioned it before, but the first time I saw like little tiny thumbnails of that in EGM, it was like, oh my God, this is like the fantasy game, like the dream game I've been waiting for. And it's very rudimentary now, but back then, like, it was like, oh my God, they pulled it off. I'm in a 3D city.
Yeah. I mean, that is huge. You're right. That's a colossal one. I think for me, a couple things with the original PlayStation. First of all, realizing that some games, PlayStation games, you could put in a CD player and it would play the soundtrack to that game. Like Twisted Metal 1, I remember did that and I was like, what are you talking about? That is the craziest freaking thing I've ever heard in my life. And the other one is the secret little lesson in game development, I guess, with that idea that with some games you could open it up and take it out of the PlayStation and still continue playing it. Like that freaked me out. And it's always fun to see like what fell apart in the game and when it stopped working. And it's like, oh, the lesson is just like, that is everything it's able to store in RAM at that moment. You can keep coasting on. It's such a weird, funky idea to be like, look, the game's here, but it's also on the screen. Wow.
Me and my friend tried to play Miami Vice on PSP co-op by doing that, by playing it and popping up UMD because it would keep running. We were like, maybe we can do it with this one UMD.
That's absurd. Did it work?
No.
But you're just that hot and heavy
We
about
didn't
playing
know-
Miami
we didn't
Vice?
understand RAM at the time. We were like, oh, it's just like telling the PSP you own it, and then
It's all a lie.
right.
But Miami Vice?
I don't know why that was the one we had around at the time that had co-op, but yeah.
Mine was, I think, at the height of our Pokemania. We were all playing Pokemon, and at some point, a couple of our cousins came over, and I think we were watching a TV show and playing. My brother and I were playing Pokemon, and at some point, I don't think they had anything on them, but they were just kind of sitting in silence, I think, and they were older than us, I want to say, because at some point, randomly, it was just complete silence because we were playing Pokemon and watching TV. And he just popped up and said like, "Hey, you want to know how to get 99 Master Balls?" And we were both like, "Wait, what?" And he showed us the trick of how to do the missing number thing on Cinnabar Island, and we were just like, our minds were just like, what? I cannot believe games are made out of anything other than magic. This is ridiculous. And they were like, no, but and it was weird because you have to do it this specific way or it'll wipe your save. So we were like, okay, we felt like we were like summoning Satan or something.
And then you did.
Like, okay, you're going to reach deep into this game and pull out these 99 Master Balls, but there's a monster there that could destroy your entire save.
That's amazing. Do you want to know why I think I'm a bad person and I'll probably meet Satan someday?
You're a missing number?
I am a missing number. No, because I remember being at my friend's house one time and he had a younger brother. And so like, of course you have to make fun of the younger brother. There's no other way to go about it. But he was playing Pokemon and I booted up his Game Boy, used his Master Ball on a Weedle and then saved it.
Wow.
It was really a cruel move and I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think there's any redemption for me. I think it's all downhill.
No.
Did he ever find out? Like,
I assume, but like compared to Noogies, I'm sure he's like, well, this could have been worse. Or whatever.
This is better than a noogie, I guess.
North of Noogie. And also, this is a very specific memory, and I don't think it's true, but it has stood out to me so much that I don't even want to know if it is true. But in the snowboarding game 1080 on N64, my cousin told me, because at the intro video, it's like 1080. And my cousin told me that it only started saying 1080 at the start of the game after you landed a 1080 in the game. And I was like, that is the coolest idea. And I still don't know if it's true. I don't think it is, but that's an awesome idea. Isn't it? Like just to hold on that, like who would ever think of that?
That's a good idea.
And they probably didn't. Anyways, Duke Faison writes in, he says, hello, MinnMax crew. In the early days of gaming, it was the norm to play as the hero, the good guy, the police, and so on. But today we have many examples of playing as the bad guys. What made the change? What are the major titles that changed the norm, and what are some early examples, you think?
We found out the police are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Part one, yeah.
I want to say it might have been another BioShock thing, or I mean, it goes back as far back as like GTA, right, where you're like there are no pretenses about you being a good person. Like all you're doing is committing crimes and working your way up, criminal enterprises. But I think in terms of like why it's so popular now, yeah, I think BioShock might have been one of those games where it's like, wait a second, are we the baddies? Or like, it's kind of turning the idea of the actions in video games that most people do are inherently not great, like in context when you actually would perform them.
I wonder if
when it comes to big budget things.
I wonder if Shadow of the Colossus would kind of get us a little bit of the way there. I know that one's a little bit murkier, but just for that questioning.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, I think in a weird way, like Walter White and that kind of generation of television storytelling, where it's like we're embracing protagonists that are flawed people and like have very serious, problems with their personalities. And I feel like there's been that kind of evolution of video game storytelling and telling more complex narratives than just like, I'm the good guy and I'm going to go shoot bad guys. I think there's a whole generation of developers who have grown up since then and are interested in telling more nuanced stories nowadays. So they're also drawn. That's more like the kind of shadowy gray area of like what makes a protagonist bad or good as opposed to just playing as a criminal. But I think that's also a sign that we've been evolving as a medium.
Yeah. Joseph Dowdy writes and he says, hello, cohorts. Question for Jeffem and Jeffem only. And if anybody else thinks of answering this question, they are cursed. He says, could you tell me the difference between a board game and a tabletop game? Does a board game require a physical board? Does a tabletop game require a surface of some kind? I need answers. Leo, did you want to take this one?
They both require a surface.
You fool!
You're cursed.
Jeffem, what is the difference?
Your master ball is gone now. There's a Weedle inside it.
That old expression.
Yeah, there's no difference. You're thinking about it too hard. I think tabletop games they can also encompass like tabletop RPGs, and you probably would lump in like miniatures games and war games. There are a couple other kind of genres that are adjacent to like traditional board game that may be more comfortable it being called a tabletop game, but mostly it's fine. If anyone was ever going to make fun of you because you said tabletop game as opposed to board game, you should not play any games with that person.
Yeah.
It's pretty inclusive terminology.
Do you think it kind of has grown out from, if you say you're really into board games, there was definitely that era where people would be like Monopoly? And so just to try and differentiate the hobby from objectively crappy games.
A little bit. There's also the term designer board games now that people will throw around. And as far as I can tell, that just means like I play good board games. So there's that too. I think it's just as the entire hobby has grown and become more popular nowadays, I think the people are looking for a kind of different ways to differentiate themselves from the older. Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha. Jason Daphnis, co-host and producer of Crossfade, our standalone music podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. He didn't write that, but I did. He says, right now, Suriel, top of your head, no Googling, how many digits in the title of the new NieR game can you accurately guess in the right order?
1.227.
Oh.
1.224?
Yes.
1.2247?
Yes.
I think that's about as far
That is so much better than I thought. Jeffem, can you guess the next number?
1.224713.
I'm sorry, it's 4 after that. That's embarrassing. Leo, can you believe these schmucks?
Well, to be fair, it is kind of a spoiler for the ending, so it's better you don't know.
Oh, interesting. Sean Mason writes in, he says, recently I was playing a Jeopardy game with my 7th grade students, and I couldn't believe how many of them were sore losers. It was like they had never experienced losing a game in their life. It got to the point where one student threw his Chromebook on the floor, smashing the screen.
Wow.
Over a school version of Jeopardy.
Yeah. Oh, daily double. So my question is, what is the worst display of someone being a sore loser you've ever seen?
I'm still lingering on that image. If I did that when I was a kid, I would come home and just disappear into dust. My parents would just delete me.
Which all parents can do at any moment if they want to.
They can undo their sons.
Sundu, they call it. Does anybody have a good example of just terrible being a sore loser?
I can't remember what the name of the game was, but there's this one blowhard who lost it, and then he spent like 4 months insisting that the game was rigged against him and that it shouldn't have counted to begin with, and then they overthrew the U.S. Capitol.
Hey.
This guy's really something else.
But no,
Talking about Fortnite.
Yeah, to go along with the original question, I have noticed that with my nieces and nephew, like because I buy them like, appropriate weight board games for them and we do like game nights with the kids and stuff, and it's really interesting that like you have to teach kids how to lose right.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole lesson, and I don't know how you actually do it yet, because that's something that I'm also interested in now that, I have a little baby who's too young so far, but it's like where did my brother go wrong? Because I think he's a good parent overall, but clearly like his kids have not learned that. And one of them just doesn't want to play board games at all anymore because she lost a couple times and now she really hates it. His son like will just openly weep and get like super upset.
I don't know if it's your brother blowing it. I think just all kids are that petty and hollow and sensitive. I think it takes a lot to get over that.
I think it does, but I don't know what the steps are that we all went through, like playing video games and stuff where it's like none of us care if we lose a game, right?
I have gotten really pissy a couple times.
Okay.
I don't I think I can win.
I'm definitely not as good of a sport as I want to be. I think gaming definitely brings that out of people. I notice it in my friends, not just myself. And I think that's something similar with sports or whatever. It's just the competitive aspect. there's somebody in my life close to me who's plays board games, and their adult family members will be crying because they're losing. I don't know if adults... I feel like I used to like to say I wasn't a competitive person, and then I kind of had to go, you know what? It does bother me when I lose. And that's something I have to be very conscious about growing past. And it's like slow going, unlearning that stuff.
Yeah, I consider myself pretty chill. I think we all agree I'm pretty cool. But then there's just moments where it's like I suddenly get really crappy and competitive. Like I remember one time, it's not competitive. Here's what it was. Is one time I was playing Samurai Gun with best friend Ronnie, and he beat me like 20 matches in a row. Like I had 0. And I consider myself pretty good at the game. Like I played a lot of that game going into that night, and I was livid. And like I literally just, without saying a word, just went and uninstalled the game and have refused to play ever since then. It's this big thorn in his side about how pissy I was that night. But I'm like, it's not even being competitive at that point. It's just like, I am so embarrassed that this happened to me. I want to bury all existence of it.
Right. I think part of it is that like divorcing yourself and your like having that reflect on what you think of your own skills or, you know, your own intelligence, I think is where people kind of fall into that problem of like, well, I lost this game badly, therefore I must be stupid, or, you know, this person is better than me, as opposed to just, it was just a dumb game and I did my best and who cares if I won or lost.
Totally. Yeah. Like playing chess, it's like, if you lose in chess, I see that as like, I just objectively have a lower IQ than you do. I has a lower IQ than you do.
I'm more dumbness than you. No, I think it helps to have things that you invest in that kind of funnel that competitive spirit. So I think it helps that it kind of helps that I play Dota a lot, because that's where I'm like, okay, this person has destroyed me in lane, and that's the thing that I get really pissy about. But you know, when it comes to stuff like playing Jackbox or playing like board games, I'm just like, well, like Dota, I've decided to invest in Dota. I don't care what happens in this game. So it's like, and I do that actively as a way to prevent myself from like not getting like more upset at the game. I'm just like, this is not the thing I've decided to spend this much time on. Like these people are probably better at it than me. I don't care. So it helps to have like places where, okay, I need to invest it. I have decided to invest a lot of time in this, so it matters whether I win or lose, versus, you know, stuff where it's just like, I'm, you know, whatever. I'm playing Uno with my friends. There are no stakes here. I don't care.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it comes, I love this topic of conversation, if we can get fully deep into it.
Please.
Playing Siege is where I would get the most angry. That's my competitive go-to. And something I talked about it in therapy once, talking about like, God, I get so mad playing games, and it's so embarrassing when I'm like raging out on the mic with my friends or whatever. And we talked about like, is there somebody who's a good role model for me in that way? And I was like, absolutely. There's one person in my party who is just unflappable, just like rolls with every, and it's been so nice to like, just what would he do? I have that as like a target of how I want to be behaving. Because the goal, of course, is to have fun with friends. And it's easy to lose sight of that in the heat of the moment.
And what does he do?
He just laughs off everything. Like just getting spawn peeked or whatever, it's just not a big deal. He just doesn't be a baby about it. But he's really incredible.
But he's also good, because it's easy to laugh stuff off when it's like, I don't really understand what's going on here. It's a silly game.
He's not the best.
Okay. You're supposed to be like, no, and he's the best out of all of us. So that's why we should try to strive to be like him.
Well, he's the best in a lot of ways. Yeah. In the more important ways, honestly.
That's true. Rock Party writes in and says, hey, Hanson and the CLCs, I've been thinking a lot about the gaming industry and trying to come up with labels. Always a good effort. And so far, I think I've come up with a few. Like Dan Reichert would be considered a gaming personality. I think Hanson is a gaming journalist with his hosting and interviews. Jason Schreier is a gaming reporter. And then people who make money playing a game or a few games would be pro gamers. Any thoughts on this, or are there better labels, or what do you think of labels in the game industry like this?
We're all influencers.
Yeah. At the
all
end
we do
of the day.
is deal in
we're all content influencers at the end of the day, you know.
Pulling strings.
Yeah, we're all basically the same as that McDonald's paste that people will say is meat. It's all the same. Just eat whatever. No, I mean, I think the journalist reporter thing is maybe the trickiest one there, because
Yeah, I have no idea what I'd call myself.
Yeah, because I think I would call Schreier a journalist in almost the truest sense of the word, if they are gaming journalists. But this isn't to say like reporter is somehow a lesser label.
Right.
It's just weird. Yeah, the stratifying that thing. I think there is a difference between someone like us who just like does podcasts and has some amount of like, let's talk about this, let's take the industry seriously and discuss topics that come up, and someone who is doing that legwork, who is contacting sources, right? Like I don't have sources for most of the things that I do.
So sources make you a journalist?
I mean, that's one of the things, right? It's just doing, like, when I was at Game Informer, I would have called myself a journalist because I was talking to developers. I was, I talked to people on background, like I talked to people for stories to put together this, like, here is this thing that is happening in this community or in gaming at this point. And that to me is like the basics of journalism, which isn't to say that I was doing groundbreaking work. That is just the definition of what it means to be a journalist. But it's hard, like, and that's very different from what I do now, which is mostly just write reviews and come on the show and talk and be a pundit, right?
I guess so. Okay, pundit. That's the one you're adding in here. That's what you prefer?
Well, I think that's where I think I would put Dan Reichert. Like
he's a pundit?
Because I think he does do research, right? Like I think personalities I would imagine is being more like people who host stuff, I guess. Like who are like, I'm hosting this stream and like moderating panels and stuff. That's sort of where I would do it.
But saying Dan does research, like, I don't know if you listen to his.
I liked your instinctual frown.
He does the research of like playing the games, right? Like he is not purely a personality, in that like a lot of people come in just to hear Dan, like be a nice guy, but it's like they come to him for information. Like, but like, what does he think about this game? So I think that is almost to me the definition of a pun. Is like, what does this person think? Like, I want to hear what their thoughts on this specific thing versus like, I just enjoy being around them, right? Like, and I think that's, and again, these are like, you're almost kind of making this up as you go. It's like, oh, I've decided that this is where all the lines are.
Yeah, I have no idea. It was a confusing thing. I was going to be on a Canadian radio station to talk about Pokemon's anniversary. Is a weird thing, but they like called me to do a pre-interview, and their final question was like, "Okay, and do you consider yourself a journalist?" I was like,
you hung up.
Yeah, I panicked and said, "Pokemon over, click, happy anniversary," and I was so stumped. I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't know how to answer that.
Call yourself a journalist?
What's that?
You can call yourself a journalist? I don't know why you would.
I don't know. It just seems like a official
Well, what was their
title.
tone? Because and you call yourself a journalist?
That's exactly what he said.
I mean, would you consider the hosts on 60 Minutes journalists?
Yeah. Our boy John Dickerson, unofficial cohort of MinnMax? Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think is different about what you do as opposed to a host on 60 Minutes?
He travels and does background research.
You don't do that?
You did that for several years when you were doing cover stories.
Yeah. I don't know.
Background research on them, and then you talk to them.
I don't think I took a journalism class in college. Maybe that's why I'm weird about it. Maybe I took one. I don't even remember. You can't be a journalist and not remember.
It is not journalist should not have to be like an aspirational title, in the way that like art does not have to be good to be art. Like you can be a journalist and not have to think of yourself like, well, am I Jason Schreier? Am I Patrick Klepper? Like only those people can be journalists. Like no, there's like a wide range from everything from the way Vice does journalism versus the way ABC does journalism. Like that is all on a spectrum. It's not like a prestige. Being a journalist is not like inherently a prestigious thing. It is just something that defines the work that you do.
Yeah, I guess so. Joe Halaska writes in with a question only for gaming journalists. He says, last week, a federal trial court denied a motion to dismiss a lawsuit which appears to be a class action against Apple concerning perpetual access to digital content. Apple tried to argue that no reasonable consumer would expect digital content to be available forever, and the court shot that argument down and is allowing the case to proceed on a trial track. I haven't seen gaming news websites pick this up, but I think it's something to which they should pay attention. If Apple is stopped from preventing consumers who paid for digital content from accessing it again after a certain point, that can be used to effectively require the home console owners to permit re-downloads of paid content, PT, in perpetuity. Of course, consoles have a shelf life, but I just bring it up here to call attention to this case because of the potential for persuasive presidential impact on future similar efforts by gamers who might eventually be unable to re-download all that stuff they panic bought on their PS3s 3 weeks ago.
You get them.
Get 'em. Yeah,
Take that apple down. Take a big bite out of that apple.
Yeah, go Epic, go, or whatever. Hashtag free Fortnite, baby. Yeah, I think
Fortnite is free.
Yeah, but even more. But we didn't mention on the show that, Sony did 180 from the discussion that we mentioned a couple of weeks back and said, the PS3 store, the Vita store, we'll leave that up for a little bit longer. PSP store's coming down.
PSP store. No, that ship has sunk. That is an interesting question because I don't know what the law looks like where if, Apple loses that thing and has to give people access to their digital content. What are the ramifications of that on the rest of the industry? Like, does that mean everybody has to follow that precedent, or is that it's on your phone or whatever? What are the legal kind of particulars of that?
Yeah.
I think there has been a long time, reckoning coming in terms of we started coming out with digital content and we never really applied consumer rights to it, and never really there haven't been the lawsuits that there have to be in order to figure this out. So companies were just able to do whatever they wanted to do with end user license agreements and all these kinds of things where it's just we're going to put this in and we'll and this means this thing that we're telling you that it means. And it's it doesn't actually mean that until a court says that's what it means. And we've all kind of been ceding any kind of consumer rights that we may have had on, certainly as opposed to physical, products and things like that. We've just been losing them and losing them and losing them. And it's interesting and kind of hopeful that there's at least one court case that maybe will give consumers some rights in terms of the digital content that they're buying. But I guess we'll have to see if there are any ramifications from this.
Yeah. Or if it'll be something like, I want to say that a court declared that most EULAs are not enforceable, but people still put them in the games anyway. So I guess we'll see what the practical, ramifications are.
Yeah.
It's weird in the case of Apple where their software updates make old apps irrelevant anyway. Old apps just don't get updated to work with the new OS, and after 3 or so updates, you just can't use those anymore.
Yeah, it's still wild the idea that I spent $1,000 on the Final Cut Studio. It's you want to use that software? Too bad. Hope you have an old computer that you never updated, because that's the only way you can access $1,000 software.
Yeah, we've all just been waiting for there to be enough lawmakers who actually know how computers work to the point where someone can actually put forward some legislation that makes sense of digital content. And it's not just how do I get my emails on that box again?
Am I hashtagging? Another similar question. Matthew Goss writes in, he says, "Hey, MinnMaxians, me and my friends are having a debate. Who would win in a fight? Every bird in the world or every human in the world? No weapons or armor allowed? Also, just so you know, Google states that there are around 400 billion birds in the world and 7.8 billion people in the world. Leo, who's winning that fight?"
How many birds again?
400 billion.
So what's that?
It's almost 100 to 1. Or 50 to 1.
No human being could possibly do that math and figure it out. I don't understand.
I think the problem is that birds can fly, guys. We can't if we try to attack them, they just fly away.
Yeah, but then it's a stalemate.
But then they can come back at any time. Anytime you go outside. At some point.
You would just open your door and get one at a time. Open it real quick, close it, crush the sparrow in your mitt.
But see, the problem with that is that if a bird gets into the house, it's cursed the house. And so now you're going to have bad luck. So that's going to take out at least a few billion people is bad luck.
Interesting.
But there's also like a lot. Yeah, there are 400 million birds, but how many of those could feasibly do any real like a mockingbird isn't gonna. What's it gonna do? Like
Make
a blue
fun of
jay,
you.
like what?
It's gonna peck your eyes out, Serial.
If it isn't pecking range, I'm gonna destroy that bird. I'm sorry,
Guys, I just realized.
and vultures and eagles. That's a different like hawks and stuff. Like I would
Forget
be
that. You got
scared.
freaking ostriches charging your house. That's what we got to worry about.
So we're saying, I'm assuming because we're saying no weapons, that this is in some kind of arena. Otherwise, we would just use what's around us.
What
There wouldn't
else-
Be some
what
honor
else-
system where
yeah.
we wouldn't use weapons.
If you're using the house to funnel birds in one by one, does it?
Wait, it was no weapons too.
true.
No weapons.
Oh, come on! It's birds, dude.
No weapons, open field. Humans are extinct.
What is
Fox only.
what is
within
the Earth?
within
if
a
not-
week.
Okay, but I think since there's so many here, I think the arena has to be Earth. It's some sort of battlefield Earth
Yeah,
situation.
it is. I would assume it's on Earth. Even with guns, I'm saying like we're screwed.
Even with guns, what are you talking about?
What kind of gun do you think you're going to use to shoot off a flock of like 10,000 birds? Just 10,000 for you, Hanson, are coming towards you. You've got the best shotgun in the world with the widest spread.
Yeah.
They're gonna peck you to death.
I don't know, man. My shotgun's pretty
Guns
good.
aren't even the most effective weapon. You just poison birdseed and they're done. Like you just put a little house
They're
there.
gonna
Birds aren't
eat
done
you,
enough
Serial.
to know not to eat at that birdseed feeder, and they're all dead. So you just hide out, make your poison birdseed, and like wait it out.
Leo,
And what is the recipe for poison birdseed for viewers?
Poison and birdseed.
Oh, great.
They're gonna be carnivorous at this point. If they're eating all the humans, they don't need your bird seed, Serial.
Suddenly, every bird species in the world has become carnivorous.
Well, suddenly every bird species is attacking human beings.
yeah.
So, you know.
Leo,
And they don't have weapons.
You think one caused
is
the
an
other? They
amazing
ate human
question.
flesh, and they're like, "Well, I know where I can get more of this."
Leo, can we make MinnMax's first short film? And the film is just like, I looked it up. The biggest flying bird maybe is the golden eagle, I think. It's this huge frickin' eagle. And the short film is just you with your door open, trying to time it just right when the eagle is flying in so that you slam the door just at the right moment so that its head gets lodged in there and it dies. But if you miss the timing by a millisecond, you're frickin' dunzo.
Yeah.
If anyone has a golden eagle that they don't mind us abusing,
No,
let us know. Hit us up on Twitter.
there's a chance we won't abuse it. There's a chance it'll fly through at the perfect amount, and then Leo will be the one abused. So,
Right. And no one will have a problem with that.
Yeah, there's a chance either the bird will be abused or the person who might pay you will be dead.
Yep. Golden Eagle versus our Golden Boy is the name of the film. Dustin Lemp writes in, he says, "Hey there, computer liking cohorts. Sure. Is anyone else fed up with the current phrases we have at our disposal for this hype culture we live in? Last week, my boss made me follow along a 4-hour pre-recorded live stream video of two guys building a Facebook clone project in React, a programming language. During this live stream recording, these guys said, 'Let's go!' 275 times. I get that people get excited about something and $2 donations, but this is out of control. What are some other phrases we could start using instead of 'let's go' for hype stuff?"
I don't. I mean, I get the instinct, but it's such a weird thing to like. Well, for one, you're kind of forced to watch that stream, so it's probably made you more aware of like all their tells or ticks or whatever. But I don't. I think any replacement eventually becomes so popular that you just get tired of that.
So that's the nature of the beast. It always has to keep evolving. And "let's go" is officially tired at this point, and we just need something else to pop up.
That's wired. Yeah.
That's wired, yeah. Well, Dustin here recommends, he says, I think either "yeah, get some" in a Gears of War voice or Shulk's line from Smash, "I'm really feeling it," would work great. I don't know.
Those sound like they would be
Those are too
instantly
long.
obnoxious.
Yeah.
Let's Go has had a lot of staying power because it's just phonetically satisfying to say. It almost feels like an F word or something as far as just an expletive of conveying your emotion.
Yep, that is true.
Also, anything that ends with a vowel is inherently more exciting to say because you can just extend the vowel as long as you want, and it makes for a better. Like I'm really feeling it. Like doesn't do.
Are you being electrocuted
No,
by
I
a
think that's the
taser?
new one.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I forget exactly what it was, but I was watching Last Chance U the latest basketball one on Netflix, which is very good, believe it or not. But this guy, I think they bet on something about making a half court shot or something. And this college kid made this unbelievable shot. And then I believe what he said is he looks at the coach he was gambling against and he goes, check the time, which is like, what a weird specific thing to say after you do something amazing, but I really like it.
Yeah, mark it for the history books.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a fun
cool.
one. Victor Pham writes in, he says, are stories like the one in NieR more effective due to its use of video games and as a unique storytelling medium? What are some good stories in games that can only be told as a video game? Let's see, the game that Leo said was Dog Trash Before Your Eyes comes to mind, but just because that's very fresh.
Dog ass.
Dog ass. I'm sorry, dog ass.
A beginner's guide comes to mind for me because the person who made what you're playing is very much a character in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Papers, Please is probably one of my favorite examples of that, where it's all like, it's literally just all interface, and that the interface is the way you tell the story. It's not like, it's not commenting. There's no like narrative or anything like that. It is literally the process of your actions in that game are literally the story that you're playing out.
Yeah. Brothers, Tale of Two Sons is a classic example.
Bastion, kind of
Yeah, I
like
guess so. You get to
the
choose
narrator that's reacting to what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, Hades is even an even better example because it's using the idea of repeated deaths to, like have you make progress and tell the story.
Returnal, baby. I was listening to this podcast interview with Neil Druckmann and Hallie Gross from Naughty Dog. I don't know if you saw the headlines from it, but in this podcast interview, Neil Druckmann said like, oh yeah, we got a story outline for Last of Us Part 3. He said, it's not in production. Just to be clear, it's not in production, but technically we have an outline for what it would be. But it's interesting. He's talking in there about like trying to remember the name of the podcast. Script Apart is the name of it, but it was a very good interview. But he talks about how when they were making the movie version of The Last of Us, he kept running into the problem of the Hollywood producers kept being like, okay, we need more action. We need more set pieces. How can we heighten all of the action scenes in The Last of Us? Which was funny in his mind because we were trying to strip all that stuff out when we made the game. Like the game was based on the tone of No Country for Old Men and like stripping away kind of the bombast and the Michael Bay of what a video game could be. And so that's when he's like, yeah, it just wasn't working. And ultimately that's why the TV show will work well because we don't need action set pieces at these intervals in the film. But
it's also funny because I guess you don't necessarily you have to design the action set pieces in something like The Last of Us versus script exactly how it would go. So I could totally see that being the hardest part is to like how does a video game designer like kind of rethink the idea of these fights as being totally scripted, which seems like a no-go in a game versus like, well, we'll put these enemies here and then the player decides how this set piece goes.
Yeah. Andrew Uerkwitz writes in and he asks a simple question to, let's see, Leo. Does Diablo 4 get released before Overwatch 2?
No.
Overwatch 2 is first, you think?
Yeah.
Even with the Kaplan? 2035. Look forward to it, everybody. Brian Tylek writes in, this is something. This is wild stuff. He says, oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Weird way to start, and the comment's going to get weirder from here on out. This past week, I was able to check an item off my bucket list that I never thought would be possible. For the longest time, I've had this goal that when I die, I wanted one of those natural burials where they plant a tree to mark your grave, so that the entire cemetery is just a big orchard. I love that, by the way. I would like that as well. And he says, except instead of a tree, I wanted a pumpkin patch. And I also wanted to put a sign in the patch that encourages people to pick a pumpkin for Halloween. And if they carve it into a jack-o'-lantern, I will personally guarantee them a free haunting during the entire month of October. For obvious reasons, I thought that was just a pipe dream. But somehow, I not only found a cemetery willing to do all that stuff, but they were super into it. Their response to me was, quote, we're going to turn this into a whole event. We're going to make you famous, which is exactly what I was hoping to hear.
I was so excited. I then died immediately. I'm a ghost writing this email.
Oh no!
Yeah, are you open to being murdered to move the timeline up here?
Oh my God, I love that he went to the point of like starting to contact cemeteries to figure out if this was possible.
Yeah, and I don't know who this cemetery is, but they're like, Let a pumpkin patch take over our cemetery? Ba ba boom! My God.
I also like how this flips the entire idea of like, man, I can't wait to die. Like I can't wait to be a pumpkin patch. It's gonna be sick.
I mean,
let's go.
Let's do it. Yeah, that honestly is such a small idea, but I think it would reframe how I would think of death. If it's like, instead of dying, it's just like, when that day comes is the day you get turned into a pumpkin patch. It makes me feel a lot better.
His last words were, hell yeah.
Make it a tall cat on the jack-o'-lantern, please. Anyways, that was it. Thank you. Zachary writes in and he says, hello, MinnMax. First time, long time. Thank you. It's time to play the game that's been taking everybody by storm. Last paragraph of a review you wrote. Are you ready?
Oh, no. Easy for me.
Serial, guess the name of the game.
I think, Leo, you've written like one review for Game Informer?
That's right. Unless they found my PlayStation Euphoria articles from 10, 15 years ago.
I better hope they didn't, because, anyways, Serial, here we go. Blank's journey is familiar, but the way it iterates and builds on that familiarity helps distinguish it from its lineage. Its combat, RPG elements, and enticing exploration intertwined seamlessly and had me obsessively scouring every nook and cranny of a gigantic map for hours, even after I defeated the last boss. I finally, my mouth. I enjoyed finally returning to this haunted castle, even if it belongs to a new master.
Bloodstained.
Correct, Jeffem. With just a
Heroes
on the move.
On the move.
Correct.
Already forgotten it.
Okay, next one though, Jeffem. With just a dozen levels, Blank's brief 6-hour runtime still proves too long for the basic puzzle mechanics. However, the satisfying platforming, thoughtful story, and adorable protagonist make it a worthwhile journey. I grew tired of repeating the same puzzle solutions, but seeing Blank through to the end was still a treat.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Incorrect.
The Puppeteer.
Incorrect, but you've got the right feel. Like
so a game Joe made me review because I reviewed the Puppeteer.
Yes. Texture forward game. When it was revealed, the internet, said they wanted to have the main character step on them or something in a different way from Lady D. People were very into this protagonist, I think in a sarcastic way.
You're only making me more confused.
The protagonist's name was Yarny.
Oh, Unraveled?
That's Unraveled, everybody.
That narrowed it down.
Serial. Blank doesn't fail due to its baggage or expectations. It blunders entirely on its own merits.
Oh, yeah. Metal Gear Survive.
Wow. I am blown away.
Nice.
Jeffem, this is Cakewalk Town here. The beginning of Blank boasts that the decisions you make during the game will craft a unique and personal story. By the time credits rolled, I was a believer. Sure, every player follows the same narrative skeleton, and a few of those more expendable characters aren't instrumental to the ending.
Yeah.
I remember that one. I think that was a PSN game, right?
Oh, what's the name of that one? It's the horror one.
Yep. With a lot of disposable characters.
Am I allowed to guess?
Keep reading.
Yeah, Serial, what is it?
Until Dawn.
Thank you. There we go. An Attack Corgi writes in. Thank you, by the way, Zach. That was lovely. An Attack Corgi writes in. He says, hey, my favorite gaming podcast on the Citadel. So Mass Effect's remaster is coming up soon, and I'm wondering how I'll play it differently than I did a decade ago. If you are going to replay the game, will you play it differently? This is number one thoughtful decision in my life right now. I've taken long walks thinking about how I'm going to handle this.
You've moved in the last year.
I know. Big decisions, but this is number one, is what am I going to do with this remaster?
Well, for starters...
Go ahead.
For starters, I wouldn't remember all the decisions I made the first time around. From like 15 years ago, so I would probably make different ones. But the one I know that I will make for sure is I'm going to play as the female version of Shepard. because I played as the male version the first time. So
Yeah, that's an easy one.
I have the same answer, but I think there's a good chance that as I'm approaching certain decisions, I'll be like, oh, I remember this decision, but not know which way it went. So I think, I don't think I'll be consciously making the renegade choice. I've just never been that kind of guy. Like, I don't think I would ever knowingly just, this is the bad guy choice, so I'm just going to make it. I always played those games as naturalistic as possible.
Yeah.
But I always ended up being like, well, I don't want anyone to be mad at me, so I'll always make the good guy choice.
Don't undo me, mommy. Yeah, I'm really torn on this one. I think I'm going to play it, because there might be a chance that we'll be talking about this game a lot. I think I might play it the way I played the first game, which had some brutal moments, but I think it was kind of unique for that. And if I could just have my canonical Mass Effect, I think it's worth it for the discussion to have some characters go down in flames in unexpected ways. And Leo, this will be your first time playing.
Hey,
yes?
you did terribly in that game, didn't you?
Well, I did okay overall, but it's specifically, I guess we're in the territory where I guess I don't even spoil it. There's just one character that I thought I'm just really...
One of the coolest characters.
Right. I said, I'm just kind of going to be a dick to this character. And then it turns out that was one character that was a life or death situation if you were being a dick to them. So it was no good. But yeah, Leo, this is your first time coming up, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to be playing more than just the first 3 hours this time is what I'll be doing differently.
There we go. Guaranteed. Denim Harry writes in and says, are there any games not currently in your physical library that you would love to have? For me, it's oddly Frogger Adventures Temple of the Frog for Game Boy Advance.
Hey, don't make fun of it. Maybe it's a good game. You don't know.
I just love whoever named that Temple of the Frog. Yeah, what do y'all think? Physical things that you really want to own?
Yeah, there's a ton of games. I think because I used to be pretty compulsive about selling stuff after I beat it. So I have a lot. There's this really obscure game by Hudson called Lost in Shadow, which I think about more than I probably should. I don't think it was a fantastic game, but it was sort of like a Shadow of the Colossus in 2D kind of aesthetic. But you played as this shadow, and that is a game that I think has become really hard to find. The first Phoenix Wright game for DS, I borrowed from a friend, so I don't actually have it. I have the rest of those games, but I don't have the first one. And that's one of those games where it's if you want to find a copy now for DS, it's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just stuff where the original Mario Galaxy I don't have. Well, I have that collection, but I don't have the original Wii copy. So there's just a lot of games that I would like to buy back from my past self.
Yeah.
More than I need this rare edition of whatever.
That's the most boring time loop game of all time, by the way. It's just you buying former copies of the game. I think for me, it's Pokemon Puzzle League on N64. I have never owned it. Now that I love Panel de Pon, it's crazy that I haven't really played that game in a big way, but it turns out it's expensive. Grizzled Gaming writes in. He says, hey gang, it's time to play America's least creatively named game show, Real Video Game Characters or Nah. I've listed out several potential video game characters, and it's your job to guess if it's a real character from a video game or completely made up. Let's see. So the order for guessing, because we have some to get through here, will be Leo, then Suriel, then Jeffem. Okay, so let's just roll through it. Leo, Duff McWhalen, real or fake?
Well, before we get started, I want to
sir.
point out that these are all made up. It's a video game. So and kind of a marginal differences, but I'll say this one's real.
That is real. That's Mega Man X5. Suriel, yes. Anti-Lobster.
I'm going to say real.
Fake. Jeffem, Cyber Woo.
Real.
That's King of the Monsters 2. Leo, Manhattan Hackney.
Fake.
Fake. Suriel, Jet Brody.
Real.
Real from Fracture. If you know the name of the game, by the way, jump right in. Henry Cooldown, Jeffem.
Real.
Suriel, do you know what that is?
No More Heroes.
Correct. Very impressive. Leo, Murgle, with multiple letters there.
I'm going to guess that's real and a Murloc from World of Warcraft.
100% correct. Very impressive. Suriel, Ceaseless Discharge.
Real. That's from Dark Souls.
There we go, baby. Jeffem, Deep Hammer.
Fake.
Correct. Leo, martial
outta here.
law, the name of a character.
Martial law? Probably. It sounds like a PS2 era name.
Maybe PS1. Leo, or Sariel, do you know which game he's in?
Tekken.
It's Tekken, yeah. Do you know which one, by chance?
He's in several of them at this point. Yeah.
What about Hans Clamp? Or maybe Hans Klomp, Sariel.
Fake?
That is Parasite Eve. Jeffem, Vagabond Octopus.
Fake.
Fake. Leo, Metal Shark Player.
That's too weird to not be real. Real.
That is Mega Man 6, X6, specifically Serial Wiggly Chad.
Real?
Fake. Jeffem, Edge Maverick.
Real.
That is Stardust and the Last Hope.
That's awesome.
Cream the Rabbit, Leo.
Cream or cream?
Cream, like the rabbit.
That's real unless it's a trick question and Cream isn't a rabbit. If we're talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog character, Cream.
That is exactly it. Congratulations. I mean, get ready for this softball. Serial Skullomania.
Real.
Real.
And my friend.
From Street Fighter EX. You got it. Jeffem, Azul the Cerulean.
Real.
Any guess what it's from?
Elder Scrolls.
No, that's a good game. This is from Dirge of Cerberus, friend of the show, Dirge of Cerberus. Check out our Let's Play on our YouTube channel if you want to end your life. Leo, Zigbar.
Real.
That is Kingdom Hearts 2. Serial, Pizza Pasta.
Careful.
Real?
That is from Punch Out the arcade game. Jeffem, Dingo Egret.
Want that to be real.
That is from Zone of the Enders, the second runner. Thank you, Grizzled Gaming, for your wonderful game.
That was incredible.
I got all mine right.
Yeah,
I think I got all
wow.
mine right, too.
And it turns out we all won. What do y'all like for Question of the Week? A lot of good
Great
ones.
cues in there. Great cues in there. A lot of them.
Yeah.
I like the one about being a poor sport.
Yep.
And I like the one about whether we're journalists or pundits or what.
I like the blow your mind one.
I like Blow Your Mind. Yep. I like Poor Sports. I like the pumpkin patch. I like birds.
A lot of good discussions this week.
I know. It's amazing. I'm leaning Poor Sports just for like, I think it made the show better to have that discussion, but
Yeah, that's definitely on the getting better tip. So
okay.
I think we should go with that one.
There we
Do that
go.
one.
Congratulations, Sean Mason. You win I Am 8-Bit's vinyl soundtrack to Battletoads. Congratulations. Now it's time for something that we personally like to call Get a Load of This. Jeffem, do you want to wow
Just
us?
assume there's music there, right?
Oh, big
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Good.
Get a load of this. If you like art, but you don't want to travel across the world during a pandemic,
Yeah.
the Louvre has digitized almost their entire collection. They have over 480,000 works of art that you can now see on the Louvre website.
What are we talking here? PDS? JPEG?
They're surprisingly high resolution pictures of all their art, and it's searchable in, they've done a good job kind of letting you search in different subjects and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So if you just want to look at a ton of old impressive art, you can find it all now online.
That's perfect. Leo?
Get a load of this. It's a tweet from twitter.com from Dirk Blocker, who is one of the guys on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, one of the detectives. He posted, many years ago, we were part of a test for a Far Side film. Sadly, nothing came of it, but we had a grand time. And he posts a couple images from a screen test or whatever where they're done up to look like Far Side characters.
What?
And it's hard to describe. They're in kind of fat suits, for lack of a better term, but they're not real ones. They're more like shaping their bodies to look like the weird shapes of people in Far Side comics.
What a weird idea.
Very weird idea.
Woof.
And very interesting images to look at.
And there's a link below in the description for everybody if you want to check them out. Mine is, it was a tweet that was a little factoid about science. And I said, that's fascinating. And I saved it. And then by the time I went and checked it again today, it was taken down. So I'm like, well, I guess that wasn't true. But it turns out there's articles like Slate.com here that wrote about it that says, well, it's kind of true, which is that every planet can fit in between Earth and the moon, which is so wild to me.
Wait, at once or like individually?
At once. You can put them all end to end. And here's the qualifier. It's when the Earth and the moon are at their furthest apart because it changes a little bit over time and stuff. But isn't that wild? So there's an article below to try and help you visualize Jupiter and Saturn and everything else in that gap. Because the moon, I figure I can like jump to the moon. It seems right there, but guess not.
Do it.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, do it right now.
Okay, fine. Cereal to
Turn
get one?
into a pumpkin patch.
Yeah, so get a load of this. There's an article on Kotaku.com called NES Tetris players call it rolling, and they're setting new world records.
Yes.
And it is about, basically recaps this video called New NES Tetris Technique Faster Than Hyper Tapping. But it's actually like this really concise and well done history of like different input methods people have used for the NES controller. And it's not like anything like, oh, we modified this or whatever. It's just like how players orient their hands to actually press the buttons to rotate stuff more quickly and play better in Tetris. And the one they highlight here is this technique where you basically like, if you imagine like, I haven't seen it, but like if you imagine this being the NES controller, what you do is if this is the D-pad, right?
Yeah.
If you have your thumb on the D-pad, you kind of put your thumb here and then you roll your fingers underneath the actual D-pad itself. So, and that's what's creating the taps. And people have been learning this technique to play Tetris more quickly, and it's really fascinating to see like how it's done and like how people were like, "Oh, hyper tapping is what everyone used," but that took a really long time because people didn't really take it seriously. So there's just this really it's like a 10-minute video that shows you like this is these are all the techniques that people use to play NES Tetris specifically.
That's cool.
It's really cool just for the fact that I don't think I did it justice here, and you probably have to see it for yourself to visualize what it's like. So yeah, go ahead and check that out.
Sweet. Love it. You got one from the community in the Discord there, Jeff?
I do. Get a load of this. This one is from Adam, and it was a tweet from Joe Juba, friend of the show.
Oh my God.
And he said, for some reason, my dad sent me this Photoshop picture he made in the early 2000s. It features my face, my sister's hair, and Tony Danza's body. If I have to look upon this nightmare, then you do too. He's not selling it. He's calling it a nightmare, but he looks pretty good under those situations.
He's real dreamy.
He looks like a LucasArts adventure game character.
Good.
But you should check that out. And I also just like that his dad is technically proficient enough to be photoshopping images back in the early 2000s, because my dad can't do that.
My dad can't do that.
Welcome to our new show. Can your dad do that?
Welcome to New Show Plus. My dad can't do that.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'll look at tweets and I'll have a reply in my head, but then look at the replies to say like, has someone already made that joke? And the one that I saw for this one was someone had just posted a picture of Bob from Twin Peaks, and I was like, okay, that's my reply.
Yeah.
My work has already been done for me.
Oh, good.
But that was a good tweet for sure.
All right. Hey, plugs, everybody. New Pokemon Snap. We'll be streaming it on Friday at twitch.tv/MinnMax show. Should be a very fun stream. And Leo, get a load of this. It'll be the first in-person stream that we've done for over a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild time. So check that out. I hope you enjoy it. And you can follow us on Twitch. We might have some fun announcements coming up in the near future about Twitch. So it's a good time to follow us. So thanks to everybody for checking out twitch.tv/MinnMax show. Also, I made a video essay this week talking about the development history of the original Pokemon Snap, which you can check out on our YouTube channel, which has a wild history that, as a huge fan, I didn't know about how it started as this dream project for Miyamoto and Iwata, and basically was Nintendo's approach in a way of creating their own little valve with a flat structure and no deadlines, and it turns out it did not work well, and they eventually pulled the ripcord and said, just make it a Pokemon game, I don't know, we need to end this nightmare. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel. It's a very interesting video essay, I think, but I'm a nerd.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Thanks, Leo. There we go. And thanks to all of our supporters on Patreon, especially those at the $50 tier. You know who that is. I'm talking I Am 8-Bit, Rainmaker.gg, Another Eden on Steam, Mirko Arico-Torreno, MoonFaceNick, Zachary Pligge, BeatenDownBrian, Jawarhello, Mark Seliga, Ludwig Roque, Andrew Uerkwitz, PrettyGoodPrinting.com, IanTClark, Andrew Vala, Cameron Wardlaw, Yarrow, Alex Payne, Clint Farley, SpiralInYourEyes, Richard Smuts, Spider Dan, Preetham Yarlagadda, Steve Bamdad, Starkiller, Clayton Myers, SlyckNic, Jesse Vitelli, and SuperSerioussSam. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate the support. Be good, have fun, let's go.
Wow, we say let's go right there, huh?
Oh, crap.